You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. Now let's talk about this issue with the movie In the Heights. Lin-Manuel Miranda, of course, a force behind Hamilton, came out with this movie, and a lot of conversation. Latinos excited. I mean, it was about New York, and it was about the music and the culture. But then when the movie came out, there were issues. There were issues with the movie because where were the Afro-Latinos? Where did they go? Why weren't they exhibited? Why were they only sort of extras in the movie? And so Lin had to apologize for this. He actually released a statement. Y'all pull the statement up if you have it, please. This is the statement that he released. I started writing In the Heights because I didn't feel seen. And over the past 20 years, all I wanted was for us, all of us, to feel seen. I'm seeing the discussion around Afro-Latino representation in our film this weekend. It is clear that many in our dark-skinned Afro-Latino community don't feel sufficiently represented within it, particularly among the leading roles. I can hear the hurt and frustration over colorism, of feeling still unseen in the feedback. I hear that without sufficient dark-skinned Afro-Latino representation, the work feels extractive of the community we wanted so much to represent with pride and joy. In trying to paint a mosaic of this community, we fell short. I'm truly sorry. I'm learning from the feedback. I thank you for raising it, and I'm listening. I'm trying to hold space for both the incredible pride in the movie we made and be accountable for our shortcomings. Thanks for your honest feedback. I promise to do better in my future projects, and I'm dedicated to the learning and evolving we all have to do to make sure we are honoring our diverse and vibrant community. Siempre LMM. Now, you might remember Rita Moreno. She went on, I believe it was Stephen Colbert's show, and she had some thoughts about that. And this is what Rita Moreno said.
For a second, about that criticism about Lin-Manuel, that really upsets me. Oh yeah, for the
Did you
people who
see
don't,
that?
for the people who don't know, your friend and ours, Lin-Manuel Miranda, has been in the news.
He also co-produced my documentary. Yeah.
There's been some criticism for the lack of Afro-Latino people in the Heights, the movie adaptation of his play.
I mean, it's like
what do you make of that?
You can never do right, it seems. This is the man who literally has brought Latino-ness and Puerto Rican-ness to America. I couldn't do it. I mean, I would love to say I did, but I couldn't. Lin-Manuel has done that really single-handedly, and I'm thrilled to pieces, and I'm proud that he produced my documentary.
And so are you saying that while you may understand where people's concerns come from, that perhaps it's misplaced in criticizing him in this?
Well, I'm simply saying, can't you just wait a while and leave it alone? There's a lot of people who are Puerto Rican, who are also from Guatemala, who are dark and who are also fair. We are all colors in Puerto Rico. Mm-hmm. And this is how it is. And it would be so nice if they hadn't come up with that and left it alone just for now. I mean, they're really attacking the wrong person.
Now, after that, Rita Moreno got a whole lot of criticism. And Rita had to come out and say that, you know what? Yeah, I kind of messed up. I kind of messed up. She admitted that she was disappointed in herself for those comments. Friday, Real Time with Bill Maher. The conversation came up. And leave it to Mr. I'm white, but I can opine on anything, Bill Maher. This is what he had to say.
Reading also about Lin-Manuel Miranda this week, he of Hamilton fame and, won a Pulitzer Prize for it. He's got a new musical, The Heights, which is about Washington Heights. I know that neighborhood. My father parked in it every day of his life, going to New York, coming over from New Jersey, and then taking the subway down to Midtown. And he wrote the music and lyrics. His parents are Puerto Rican, came to this country from Puerto Rico. The book is by someone who's half Puerto Rican. It got 96% Rotten Tomatoes. People loved it. Great reviews, for which he has apologized profusely. Why? Well, there's Latinx performers, one black lead, but no Afro-Latinx. The committee that makes note of everyone's skin tone discovered this, and then Lin-Manuel Miranda had to say, I'm truly sorry. I'm learning from the feedback. I thank you for raising it, and I'm listening. I promise to do better in my future projects. This is what I was talking about with Nikki. Please stop the apologizing. You're the guy who made the founding fathers black and Hispanic. I don't think you have to apologize to Twitter. For fuck's sake. This is why people hate Democrats. It's cringy.
Well, they can't seem to distinguish between an oversight and an outrage. Okay, and let me help them. As a white boy, I had to look this up because it's not my lived experience. But if you're a black woman giving birth, you're 4 times more likely to die in childbirth than a white woman. If you're a black kid, you're 2.5 times more likely to be shot by a cop than a white kid. If you happen to survive all that, you make less money, you have less wealth, and you die sooner. Those are outrages, and liberals ought to be focused on that, not the casting choices of, I think, a heroic guy who's making a film about a minority community.
Right. I mean...
Here are 2 white men on a national television show telling people of color what the hell we should be focused on. Allow me to unpack the bullshit Paul Begalia just said. I'm going to deal with Bill too. But the bullshit from Begalia, the things that he cited are issues we've covered. But what Paul does not understand, what Bill Maher does not understand, is that black people and Afro-Latinos have had to deal with whiteness deciding what's palatable. We can go through history. When you were a light-skinned black actress, Hollywood said, we'll accept Lena Horne. We'll accept Dorothy Dandridge. But oh, no, we are not going to accept a dark-skinned black woman. The idea of colorism is real. Because within the Latina community, within the black community, not just in the United States, but all across the globe, white supremacy has caused even us and those of us in our communities to go through the light-skinned, dark-skinned thing because white has been defined as right. That's why you had black folks in America who passed. Because they said, I will have a better existence in this society if I'm white. Jane Elliott has challenged white America saying, if you could trade places with somebody black, even if they're successful, would you? Hell no, the hands. Chris Rock, he said, no white man would trade places with me and I'm rich. So for Paul Begalia and Bill Maher to be so dismissive of the concerns also shows how they have no understanding of how deep this thing is. It has an economic impact. It has an impact on how you see yourself. See, it's real easy for two white men like Paul Begalia and Bill Maher to sit on television and say that because they've never been erased. They don't know what erasure is like. Black folks have had to deal with erasure in everything. The movie came out about Stonewall. Oh, gay folks were excited. How you erase the black people who actually made Stonewall real? Stonewall was led by black gay people. But Hollywood was like, no, y'all don't even exist. We could go down the line. How Hollywood consistently has to frame things through the white prism. Not the black star, but the white stars. George Lucas experienced this when he made Red Tails. Went to every major Hollywood studio. They said, hey, where are the white heroes? He said, the white people are the villains. The heroes are the black people. No, we need some white heroes. What Bill Maher and Paul Begalia don't get is that in American society, dark skin has always been seen like a savage. Ooh, you got nice hair. Ooh, when black and white people get together, they make pretty babies. We could go down the line. A few years ago, Afro-Latinos were criticizing Telemundo and criticizing Univision, saying, why am I seeing white Hispanics? Why are we not seeing darker hued folks on those networks, in the novellas, on the news? Colorism. Go to Haiti, colorism. Go to Jamaica, other places in the Caribbean, colorism. Go to Africa, where the bleaching creams sales have exploded. Why? Because in this world, white men and white women have said that whiteness reigns supreme. And so for Bill Maher and Paul Bagaya had the conversation? How about this, Bill? Why, if you wanted to discuss that, why didn't you book a Latino to be on the show? Yeah, I know you had the light-skinned sister, and I'm saying that for a reason, with the New York Times. But maybe if you had an Afro-Latino on the show, and in fact, Bill, I'll ask this. How many Afro-Latino commentators have you had on your show? I know as an African-American, y'all only had me one time, October 2014, and y'all can't return our phone calls, so it's been 7 years. But I want to know, where are they? See, if y'all really want to go there, let's talk about CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, ABC, NBC, CBS. First, how many Latino commentators do you see on network news? And if you see them, what do they look like? Do you see Afro-Latinos? America has never understood. America thought Roberto Clemente, oh, he black. He's like, no, I'm not. Gina Torres, oh, she black. She's like, no, this is who I am. Hey, so here you got two white men in all of their whiteness, and all of their white maleness, and all of their superiority, and in their paternalistic tone, sitting there saying, how dare y'all? How dare y'all get outraged? What's wrong with you? Here are other more important issues that y'all should be concerned about. How dare y'all get concerned about those things? Well, Paul, you're a big-time Democrat. Should I get outraged by the lack of dollars flowing to black-owned media from Democrat-run PACs like the ones you've worked with? Should Latinos be concerned with the lack of dollars flowing to them? Or are you going to tell me I should only be concerned about black women in childbirth? No, Paul, I want to be concerned about both. What we're dealing with here, y'all, is the history of America that has erased black people, that has erased Latinos. And then when you go inside of the black community, how colorism and the paper bag test and all of those things have greatly impacted our communities. So Paul and Bill, how dare the two of you be so damn arrogant in your whiteness that you want to have the audacity to tell us what in the hell we should be concerned about, because maybe Afro-Latinos want to see themselves on the big screen too. Maybe they want their culture, and maybe they want their children to see somebody who looks like them. But y'all wouldn't understand that, because hell, y'all have been looking at white men in power for your whole damn lives. Joining us right now is the director for student success with the Lumina Foundation, is Dr. Jasmine Haywood, and also community organizer Roland Clemente. Glad to have both of you on the show. Obviously, y'all can tell I was a little pissed off after I saw that bullshit on Friday. And Rosa, you one of the first folks I text, and you actually said, you know what, I'm writing about this tomorrow.
Yeah, you know, Roland, I don't really care about neoliberal racists and then also a misogynist, sexist, and Muslim, anti-Muslim Bill Maher. I think our greater concern, especially as Puerto Ricans, is first and foremost, if you're making a movie in Washington Heights, it should be a movie about the Dominican community in Washington Heights. This movie cast no Dominican actors. It casts light-skinned Puerto Ricans. But my beef is way bigger than the representation, because I'm at a point in my life where if we're going to be represented, we have to make the stories ourselves, just like you have been a guide for the last 25 years for so many of us that do quote-unquote independent journalism, but journalism that cares about our communities. Our biggest concern, my biggest concern, is that Lin-Manuel Miranda and his father have been anti-Black since before Lin was born and throughout his success with Hamilton. We can all agree that Hamilton in this day and era would never be made. You would never make a show now about a white man and another white man that enslaved Africans, and the way that Lin turned that into a success. But second, the biggest concern, especially from the Puerto Rican community, is that Lin-Manuel supported, gave testimony, and was there when President Barack Obama signed Promesa. Promesa set now an oversight board that handles all of our island finances. All mostly white men and women who work on Wall Street and decide each month how much money Puerto Rico, the government, can spend on the social good and municipal welfare. So for me, Lin-Manuel has been anti-Black when he supported Promesa. He was anti-Black when he went to Puerto Rico against the wishes of Puerto Rican organizers and students and brought Hamilton down there where people paid $10,000 a head to be there. The average yearly economy of a Puerto Rican with 4 people in a family is $37,000. And lastly, his anti-Blackness and what his father has done in New York City is a story that a lot of people don't know. People need to investigate who his father is. And if you talk to any elder activists or organizers from the 60s and the 90s, they considered his father a poverty pimp. And I would consider him that as well. But lastly, who in Puerto Rico did they think Promesa was going to affect the most? The white elite who live in gated communities in a hill, or the predominantly Afro and indigenous Boricuas and Puerto Ricanos that reside in Ponce, in Cabo Rojo, in Bayamón, in La Pela, and Loíza, which has the highest descendant of African descendants in our community. So for me, it's bigger than that, because I know we can make good stories. I spent the last 3 years making a really dope movie with incredible filmmakers, all brothers and sisters, called Judas and the Black Messiah. And that was not a biography. And we should have more movies on that. But Lin now has to atone, and he has to restore for the continual harm. I don't care about his prayers. I don't care about his thoughts. And honestly, Roland, I think this is going to end up happening. Lin is going to go the white way in Hollywood. He'll now direct movies with white people in it. He'll be in cartoons and all of that, because he has no space, and his father has no space in our community. I actually, and this will probably be controversial, I think they're traitors to their Puerto Rican self, our elders and our ancestors.
Dr. Jasmine Haywood, the thing that what really, again, troubles me about this are the people who have, 2 white guys who ain't got no clue about the reality of how deeply embedded colorism is. And for them, it's like, oh, be happy, y'all, it's some Latinos. Well, I remember when Black women criticized how Spike Lee was writing Black female roles. Just because, and again, I know Spike is a friend, but he took the hit. Tyler Perry gets criticized. We've seen folks say the exact same thing. We don't see this person, that person. I mean, we talk about in this country, America loves talking about Cubans, very, very few Afro-Cubans. And again, what these two are projecting, but to say basically, how dare y'all even speak your piece? Just be quiet and go sit down and just enjoy the movie. That's pretty much what they were saying. Just shut up and watch the movie and be happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's all a function of white supremacy. Colorism is a global phenomenon. It's not, you know, as you mentioned earlier, it cuts through the Black community, the Latino community, the Asian community. In fact, John Chu, who directed In the Heights, had this same criticism when he directed Crazy Rich Asians, in terms of casting more lighter-skinned Asians in the main lead roles. And so this is a global issue. Colorism is a cousin of white supremacy, and you know, what it does, you know, what they were talking about on the show was the perpetuation of a monolithic view of what it means to be Latino, what it means to look like a Latino. And all that does is serve white supremacy and serve the gaze of whiteness.
The reason I brought up Stonewall, and either one of you can jump in here, was because black gay people said the same thing. How in the hell y'all gonna do a movie about a movement that started and you erase the people who led the damn movement? That's outlandish. But again, Hollywood and its history has always been, how can we promote whiteness or folks who are lighter? Because let's be clear, there are white studio executives who are greenlighting films. And for them, what makes them more comfortable? That's what we're talking about here. And I think it's important to call folks out, like call Bill Maher out, call Paul Bagaya out for their comments, because power determines what we see. American movies and television is actually America's greatest export. So when the world is looking at America, they're looking at movies. And if they're seeing a certain thing, all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, that's America. And erasure is a real thing. It's real. And Rosa, we can't deny the realness of erasure. It exists.
We can't deny it, but this is what I'm saying, Roland. They're the two most insignificant people, especially to a younger generation.
No. But here's why. The issue is not significance in terms of younger people. This is why I'm saying this. Because they are on a... See, this is where the platform comes in. They are on a platform, HBO, national, international. You look at who you're talking to. You got nobody who can offer a counter to what you're saying. So when Bill and Paul speak, you hear the audience clap. And what I am arguing, and this is really where we are, and this is probably what's pissing Bill off the most right now, is the same thing on this book I'm writing on white fear. We now get to have an opinion. We now get to express it. We now get to share it. And it's hard because they're like, damn, here they go again. Yes, we're going to express our viewpoint. And it has to be called out, because if you use your platform like that, then you should get checked. And you should get checked immediately.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is a younger generation isn't tuned into Bill Maher. Like this is what I'm saying. The thing that's critical about this is addressing, as Sister earlier said, colorism, yes. Interethnic conflict. There's interethnic conflict in every community. Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, Cubans, Venezuelan, Italian, Irish. Like that happens. But that the larger picture is also that when we just talk about anti-blackness or white people particularly being anti-black, we're losing a conversation with younger people about how white supremacy is the reason that included in Hollywood this happens. Now, what I will say too, and I hope people really hear me on this point, Steven Spielberg made a movie with Rita Moreno. They remade West Side Story. Okay? 20th Century Fox. This is, for me, very critical. 20th Century Fox could spend $125 million to remake what is known in academic and all types of circles as one of the most racist movies and the most racist movie for depicting Puerto Ricans. There is a line in West Side Story where Rita Moreno says, "So glad I left Puerto Rico, I hope it sinks into the ocean." Rita Moreno and Steven Spielberg have remade West Side Story. Who was in that room, as you said? Who said in that room, this is a really good idea? Let's green light one of the most racist movies ever made that has already been remade that hundreds of times on the Tony stage. That's why when Rita Moreno said what she said, so many of us were like, oh my God, she's an elder. But actually, that interview with Stephen Colbert is such a concrete example to show the anti-blackness in the passing white Latino, Latinx community. And lastly, I don't identify as Afro-Latinx or Black Latinx. I identify as a Black Puerto Rican woman. I use the language that is inclusive, but I've also been one for over 25 years to say, I'm not Afro anything. I'm an African descent. I'm a Black Puerto Rican. Up until 3 years ago, it was very unpopular to say that. Now, unfortunately, what we're seeing is the same passing white Latino creatives, influencers, and that are the ones all being asked to write about why In the Heights was anti-Black. Like, faculty people are being hired throughout the country for a growing Afro-Latinx, Latina studies movement. And most of the people they've been hiring are Latinos who don't believe in Afro or Black Latinx. They believe in Latinidad, which is a methodology and a concept that actually asks you to erase your Blackness, erase your indigenousness. So the bigger picture is, we as Afro, Black, Latino, Latinx folks, this is our time right now to get loud. And it means all hitting at all the levels. But ultimately, I have a goal right now, Roland. Honestly, I don't want West Side Story to come out. And I'm going to fight for that, and I'm going to build a collective of people. Not only should that remake should not come out, the same $125 million that was spent on that movie is the same amount of money that studio should give to Puerto Rican organizations on the island in Puerto Rico who are now on 5 days of no electricity once again. Our island has been colonized. Lynn and all these other forces are solidifying that colonization because ultimately their political goal is for statehood. And if anybody thinks Puerto Rico is going to be a state, you're living in the wrong time in the wrong century. Puerto Rico will never be a state. We are going towards independence, regardless of these sellout Boricuas in Congress, in Hollywood, and in journalism.
Jasmine, the thing here, the point when Rosa said this is the moment to get loud, that's the issue here. The fact that Afro-Latinos are expressing their view, and they should. And they have the right to, because they know their experience better than anybody.
Yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is that as we're looking at what happened, and you know, there Rita Moreno and other people are saying things like, essentially the subtext of what they're saying is you should just be happy with what you got. Right. What that is, it reminds me of a concept called interest convergence by Derek Bell. And what that is that when those in power, when essentially the majority white folks, when those in power lend out, you know, a hand to advance equity for people of color, but they only do it within the circumstances so that the benefits for white folks outweigh the benefits for people of color. And this is a good example of that. A very good example of what can be perceived as a small progress, as a celebration, but what it really is a manipulation tactic, and it's a fallacy of Latino representation, of in the Heights specifically. If you go take a walk around the Heights today, I guarantee you will see Afro-Latino people walking around. Dominicans are the Latino subgroup that has the most prevalent identification of Afro-Latino. That identity resonates with that particular subgroup the most. So for them to misrepresent that subgroup in particular in this way is really baffling.
Well, I'll say this here. It is, I still laughing at Bill Maher saying how he knows Washington Heights so well because his dad parked his car there on his way to Manhattan. Ooh, that's how you know the neighborhood so well, huh? Got it. Well,
From 16 years ago.
Huh?
From 60 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, when Washington Heights was white. Of course, that's if he's 65, that means even longer. Yeah, his experience, all of everybody's experiences growing up in the 5 boroughs in New York City were experiences of complete ethnic stratification. Washington Heights is now known as the Little Dominican Republic. It's even small cultural things. And one of my friends was like, at the end, we all have different cultures that should be celebrated. Like when the movie opens and he's selling piraguas is a very Puerto Rican term for shaved ice. Dominicans use a different term for even shaved ice. It's like those nuances are really important. But what's also important for people to understand and grapple with Blackness and how we talk about it in the United States, very rarely do we talk about Blackness outside of the binary of African American and European American, as opposed to the Black diasporic world where it shows his heart the most. The Bronx, Washington Heights, even to this day, Brooklyn, and the 5 boroughs is where you'll find every, quote, Latino community somehow represented, but you're also seeing a growing Garifuna community that is Black, a growing Black Belizean community, a growing Black Cuban community, the continual growth of a Black Puerto Rican community, the continual growth of a Black Dominican community. And that's it's not baffling, because once we can align ourselves in solidarity with other brothers and sisters and non-binary folks on the issues that impact all of us around material resources, what they're afraid is that we're solidifying our ranks and that Blackness is now inclusive, where whiteness is always exclusive.
Excellent point there. Jasmine, your final comment.
Yeah, I just want to add on to that and say there was something that's not getting a lot of shine in the media is that there was an important piece that was in the play that was left out of the movie. And that was a scene where the father expressed some anti-Black sentiments towards Benny and him dating Nina. And that is not that's not a coincidence. It has to do with the same issue of a lack of dark-skinned Afro-Latinos in leading roles. And that would have been a perfect opportunity to showcase the realities of what it is like for a lot of African-descendant Latinas dating monoracial Black men and the pushback that they get from their families. And that's an important piece that hasn't been talked about a lot, that has been left out of the conversation.
All right, then. Rosa Clemente, Jasmine Haywood, we really appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
Racial injustice is a scourge on this nation, and the Black community has felt it for generations. We have an obligation to do something about it. Whether it's canceling student debt, increasing the minimum wage, or investing in Black-owned businesses, the Black community deserves so much better. I'm Nina Turner, and I'm running for Congress to do something about it.
You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. As Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. All right, folks, y'all gonna love this one. So, of course, Juneteenth, national holiday. Celebrated that on Saturday. Guess who tried to roll up to a Juneteenth event in Wisconsin? Senator Ron Johnson, the Republican, who blocked it last year and who still said this year he was against it because there simply are just too many federal holidays. He got a wonderful greeting when he did. Well, on Congo, Ron Johnson shows up to an event in Milwaukee. They booed him until he left. This was his quote. It still seems strange that having taxpayers provide federal employees paid time off is now required to celebrate the end of slavery. Well, guess what? Those folks said, we ain't got to listen to your ass talk. I loved it.
Man, I was listening to some of the background comments, and one woman in particular. And look, the beautiful thing about this and all of these shenanigans that the Republicans are pulling is that it actually makes me optimistic.
All right. So we have an issue, Congo. We have an issue with your connection. We have a hold on site. We're gonna fix the problem with your connection. Michael, go ahead.
It's it shows, Roland, that and as a former elected official, it just shows that politicians have no shame. He knows exactly what he did. He knows exactly what he said. He knows exactly where he stands on a variety of issues, not just the Juneteenth issue. And to show up at an event, because he's obviously thinking, oh, I'm not going to get booed. I'm going to get applauded for showing up. Because he's, of course, his staff didn't say, well, maybe you may get booed. You may get a couple boos here and there. So, oh, no way, because I'm showing up. I'm the bigger person. And that was his mentality, and he deserved to get what he got. And it's a shame that he put up the, I imagine he has never said anything about any other holiday, in particular, whether it's Christopher Columbus Day. I'm sure he hasn't said, oh, federal workers shouldn't get Columbus Day off. You better believe he hasn't said that. So, Ron Johnson, he is who he is, and I'm glad he got booed.
Congo, you there now?
Yeah. And, again, I think that it's really, it can be very good for us that the Republicans are pulling all of these shenanigans if they're not successful, because really what it's doing is it's keeping us engaged, it's keeping us involved in term elections. And so when Ron Johnson and these others show up, it's sort of like when they come into the black churches during the election season, we got to let them know that they're not welcome, that they can't on their posters in the black community. People are tired, they're upset, and they know that these guys are going to stop at nothing to disenfranchise us. So Ron Johnson got exactly what he deserved. I hope that this happens across the country, because people need to know that you're not just going to come out and just show up for these pictures and these photo ops and then come back and then disrespect our culture and history. We're not standing for it anymore.
Julian? Julian?
Like I said earlier, look at the racial composition of the crowd. People are tired of this nonsense. People are tired of this man. People are tired of the spit that he talks. I did say spit, that he talks on the floor of the Senate. And he really, he's going to get a backlash. Now, whether it's enough to get him out of office in Wisconsin, I don't know. But what I do know is that we need to look at the 100 senators who voted for Juneteenth. If they really believe in Juneteenth, they need to vote for voting rights. They need to vote for voting rights. They need to vote for the George Floyd bill. So while I'm thrilled, well, I'm not quite thrilled. I'm not jumping for Juneteenth, but I'm happy that we have it. But I wish that these folks could take their unanimous vote and do something with it that was substantive.
Well, I'm good with it, and I say every time Ron Johnson talks, boo his ass. Back to that Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
Racial injustice is a scourge on this nation, and the black community has felt it for generations. We have an obligation to do something about it. Whether it's canceling student debt, increasing the minimum wage, or investing in black-owned businesses, the black community deserves so much better. I'm Nina Turner, and I'm running for Congress to do something about it.
You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. Always Florida. When you hear crazy stuff, you can always say, it's Florida. Check this out. A state trooper is under investigation because he followed and tased a teen who looked suspicious. 16-year-old Jack Roman was on his way to his girlfriend's house when State Trooper George Spernios approached him in the patrol car. Roman ran through bushes into his girlfriend's backyard. That's when the trooper chased him and approached him with his taser drawn. Watch the video.
Put your hands behind your back.
I'll do a reset. So check this out. This is what the trooper actually said. His behavior, demeanor, and body language appeared to be a burglar. It looked to me like he had just committed a crime or was about to commit a crime. Roman was arrested and charged with failing to obey a lawful order. They always use that one. Resisting without violence. They always use that one. Possessing fewer than 20 grams of marijuana. However, his mother says she's going to use racially profiled. She's going to sue the Florida Highway Patrol for excessive force. He is still on active duty while Florida Highway Patrol investigates the incident. Is the video down ready? Go roll the video, please.
Put your hands behind your back. Ow! Ow! Stop! Put your hands behind your back. I'm gonna do it again.
I didn't see you commit a crime, but you look like you just did. I'm trying to figure out what the hell that looked like.
America?
Yeah, I mean, police have the ability to stop you if they have a reasonable suspicion of you having done something or doing something. And it doesn't extend to just you are in a place that I don't think you should be. There's standards to that. And so I think, and the use of force because he is not complying with you when, again, what is your reasonable suspicion? Looked suspicious doesn't cut it.
He looked like he just either robbed someplace or he was on his way to robbing someplace.
That I went to law school 24 years ago, and that is not what I learned in criminal law. That ain't it.
Yeah, that's not it. Amisha, go ahead.
Well, when I look at that video, the young boy, he was on his phone. He wasn't really a threat or anything of that nature. My thing is, we always talk about black parents have this conversation with their sons. When an officer approaches you, you follow the guidelines, and it didn't really look like the boy was really paying attention to the officer. What part of the responsibility was it for the boy to kind of comply or talk to the officer? Just my thoughts.
I mean, I'll just say this because I've been chased by a lot of police officers in my life as a black man who grew up on the west side of Chicago. And part of what sometimes goes through your head is get to a safe space. Mm-hmm. Get to a place where there are people who can testify. Because the reality is if you are alone as a black male in America and a police officer is coming up to you for whatever reason, the first thing I usually want is somebody else in that space.
Right.
I've driven my car into my neighbor's driveway because I know for a fact if somebody else sees it, I might have a chance. Could that have made it worse? Absolutely. Is that what I shouldn't have done? Probably.
Yeah, but you weren't such of a witness.
I need a witness.
Right.
I need a witness because my black skin is not enough of a witness. My testimony is not enough of a witness. Police have the benefit of the doubt. They've had that since they were started as slave patrol. They have the benefit of the doubt in America. And the reality is many black young people and just black folks know when it comes down to it, it's going to take a lot to convince any judge, any jury, any person, including your potentially your lawyer, that it wasn't you and you shouldn't cop a plea and these sorts of things. So I'm just saying, like, there's a psychology behind it as well where it's not just about what the law says, how black parents teach their kids and this sort of a thing. When you're in that moment, it's different.
I'm just still trying to figure out.
What's suspicious?
He looked like he either just robbed something
Roland,
or he's on his way to robbing something.
That's generational.
No. I'm just trying to figure out how you even let that come out your mouth. Like, even in this day and age, you go, I might not want to say that publicly.
I mean, you started with it's Florida. So,
right.
I mean, for me, I'm so tired of videos. But, you know, I don't want to watch another video. And just watching him hit the ground like that looked like he could have had other injuries, you know. It's just sad and scary. And even having to say, what should he have done? What should the cop have done? This is not our responsibility. These are our communities. You know, that's not our. He's supposed to keep us safe. So, yeah, it's bold for him to say that. I can't believe he said that, but in some ways I can, because what he looked like was he looked black. So that's why he looked suspicious.
This is why I'm just going to go ahead and beat this drum again. This is why I said earlier in this conversation, the question around police reform and policing has to be had around the question of what is the best mechanism for creating safety, not just creating security, not allowing it to go through the lens of cognitive biases or anti-blackness or happenstance, or I hope he had a black girlfriend and he'll say that on the stand one day. Not that kind of stuff, but actually saying what produces safety in our communities, what reduces the probability of bias informing an officer in how they not only stop someone, but how they use of force to subdue someone for something that the officer made up in their mind.
Right.
That then that person has to then go through the legal process to then free themselves from something that literally never existed in the earth outside of an officer's mind.
Wow.
That police are not creating safety. They are there as security. There's a difference.
Folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
You know, Steve got all these jobs, got all this money, got all these awards. You know, he talk about God and the Lord and his wife all the time. So he was over here talking, and his wife was there, and I knew it was his wife, so I walked up behind her and gave her a kiss on the cheek. The projects in Steve came out in about 10 seconds, because he was like, I'm hearing some kissing over here. Who the hell is kissing my wife?
Well, Roland, you leaned into it and you was doing this just to aggravate me, and I heard it out my ear, and I went, okay, man, I don't know who this brother is, but Essence is about to be different. And I spun, and it was the ignorant Roland Martin messing with me. But hey, man, you know how I feel about that girl. So it was quite interesting, and I had to apologize because the CEO of Essence was standing right there, and me and Roland almost turned the festival out. It would have been quite different.
Now, speaking of turn the festival out, we also are always on our pocket square game. Always.
Now, I got to give Roland credit. We always battling each other for the different looks. Pocket squares are something we kind of specialize in. We try to make it. This is topping the game right now. This I've never seen. I will be stealing this look. As soon as I find the people from out of this country that he bought this stuff from, and I get a proper email, I'll be sending to China or wherever he bought Japan or Yugoslavia, wherever they made this, and I will be looking. That is hot. I got to give it to you. That's the best pocket square I've ever seen.
Now, last piece. Steve is a big golfer. I'm a big golfer. So when we gonna have this golfing brothers thing?
See, Roland, you're trying to talk me into something that you've been doing a lot longer than I have. See, you've been playing golf since college.
I took it as my PE at Texas A&M in '87.
See, right there, I picked up golf after Tiger won the Masters. And then I bought a set of clubs and played with a custom set of clubs for 5 years without a lesson. I can't tell you the bad stuff I've ingrained into this swing. I just now started going over the top. I just cut that out. So, and I'm playing good though. I'm playing good for me. Well, what's your best score?
77.
That'll never happen here.
Well, Rodney Green is working with him. He's our good friend as well. But
77. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm taking a full page ad out in the USA Today.
All right, folks, don't forget this Friday, the virtual festival, Essence Fest Live Loud Virtual Festival begins this Friday. You can go to essencestudio.com, essence.com. The virtual festival will take place Friday through Sunday, and then, of course, it takes place again next weekend, July 2nd through the 4th. On Monday, we're going to have a recap of the first weekend of the virtual festival. And then, of course, on July 5th, we're going to have a recap of the second weekend. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. As Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. Georgia, where Governor Brian Kemp is deciding whether Georgia government agencies are going to close next year for Juneteenth. Guess what? To observe Juneteenth as one of the state's fixed 12 paid holidays, Kemp would have to give up either Confederate Memorial Day on April 26th or Robert E. Lee's birthday on January 19th. He will announce his decision in the next few weeks. Ooh, that's going to be a good campaign one right there, Michael. Mike, we can't hear you.
I can't wait to see how he reaches his decision and who he talks to about his decision. I don't know who I imagine some of these state representatives that are going to say, if you don't support Robert E. Lee or the Confederate Day, we're going to, pull our support. How dare you even consider Juneteenth as a holiday? So be curious to see. I think I know what Brian Kemp's going to do. He's not going to do the right thing. And it's unfortunate, but that's, again, as we've talked about on several occasions, those kind of issues come to the ballot box. If you're not happy with those decisions that your elected leaders are making, vote them out. If you sit at home and cry about, that, your vote doesn't count, your vote doesn't matter, even though you saw firsthand that it does in the last election cycle in Georgia, you can make a difference. So we'll see what Brian Kemp does, but I'm not holding my breath that he's going to do the right thing.
That's a hell of a, when you got Confederate Memorial Day, Julian, and Robert E. Lee's birthday. Let's see. So we got to choose between a trader who had slaves, who didn't want us to be freed, and the Confederates who didn't want us to be freed. And then we got to pick whether we're going to have the holiday where we got freed in Texas. Uh-oh. Okay, all right. First, Julian, can you hear me? All right, y'all fix her audio. Makongo, your thoughts about that?
Yes.
Well, I think that I agree with Michael. Unfortunately, I think Governor Kemp is going to make the wrong decision and not be on the right side of history. But you know what? This is also a good time for us to not forget that we need to keep the pressure up on the corporations, the Coca-Colas and the like, because we put a lot of pressure on them earlier this year as it relates to not supporting some of the efforts that were being made in Georgia. And now we're spending so much time speaking about some of this legislation that we can't take the eye off the ball of the people who fund these organizations and so who fund the Republican, whatever you want to call it, network of voter disenfranchisement. So I believe that if we can keep that pressure on, calling out these companies, and as Michael said, reminding people of remembering when these next elections come around, maybe we'll get lucky not lucky. Maybe we will force Governor Kemp to make the proper decision, but we have to make sure that all of our efforts, 360, are focused on the corporate pressure as well as the political pressure. And I think we might get a result that works in our favor.
I'm just laughing that the choice is Juneteenth, Confederate Memorial Day, or Robert E. Lee's birthday. Oh, I love it. I love it going into an election year. I'm sure Stacey Abrams is like,
chomping at the bit, no doubt.
What you gonna do, Brian? What you gonna do? You gonna side with freedom or with the people who didn't want us free? I love it. I love it. All right, y'all. Folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
Racial injustice is a scourge on this nation, and the black community has felt it for generations. We have an obligation to do something about it. Whether it's canceling student debt, increasing the minimum wage, or investing in black-owned businesses, the black community deserves so much better. I'm Nina Turner, and I'm running for Congress to do something about it.
You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible.
And I do want to go, though, to Pastor Dwight McKissick, the pastor out of Arlington, Texas, and he has been battling the issue of race within the Southern Baptist Convention. And actually, Pastor McKissick, these things are tied. What's happening in the United States Senate right now, and these white conservative evangelicals who are the backbone of the Republican Party, they are the ones who are also supporting these voter suppression laws across the country. The battle that you have been engaged in, it is supposed to be a theological one, but what you're really dealing with the issue of race and politics. So what you're seeing in the U.S. Senate, you actually are dealing with in the Southern Baptist Convention.
Actually, the issue is power. Who's going to control the political landscape? Will it be right-wing political conservatism that's very content with a number of African Americans not voting, as we saw the effort across the country to restrict voting? Paula White prayed for African angels to be loose and look like they were in Philadelphia and Atlanta and Detroit. All over, black people came out and voted, and the victory was won. But the critical race theory to suppress what can be taught about race and history in America is being pushed by Republicans. Voter suppression is being pushed by the Republicans, and unfortunately, we find that mindset, although we discovered it may not be the majority mindset, but it is a very substantial, significant mindset, exists in the Southern Baptist Convention. So it's unfortunate, Roland, that the South is rising again. And just like the Southern Baptist Convention gave the theological license for racism and segregation in America, in many ways, they are the backbone and the support of the Republican Party in this whole notion of voter suppression and trying to restrict what can be taught about history in our public school systems.
But you even have the new president of the SBC who literally had to disavow QAnon because it is running rampant in Southern Baptist churches. The reality is this here. These forces, they are the group that's supportive of Donald Trump. Donald Trump has a grip on the Republican Party. He has a grip on these white Southern Baptists. And the reality is the white conservative evangelicals, they are the most ardent supporters. They are the base of Trump and the Republican Party. And what we are seeing, not just with this made-up crap when it comes to critical race theory, but we're seeing this all across the board. And I have been saying for the longest, this is about power. This is about control and not wanting, frankly, those of us who are black to now have an opinion and a perspective to be able to impact the church and impact public policy.
Yeah, the Candace Owens and Vody Balkins, those persons who march in lockstep with that ideology. And I'm an independent voter. I'm neither Republican or Democrat at the end of the day. I vote for the best man or woman I think who suits the needs of the hour. But those who are will dot every I and cross every T with current political Republican thinking, they don't mind those kinds of blacks being involved. The black gentleman is running for governor down in Georgia, Vernon, whatever his name is. But if you happen to be an independent thinker, as you are, Roland, one of the best out there, can articulate your viewpoints, give a rationale and basis for it, Southern Baptists don't like blacks that are independent thinkers and voters, nor do the Republican Party. However, I want us to take note of the fact that the Al Mohler, who was a ardent Trump supporter, lost the election along with Mike Stone, the two men who were most conservative and openly supporting Trump, lost the election. And Ed Litton, who we don't know for sure how he voted, but he did not come out in favor. He did not come out against CRT. Matter of fact, he signed a document with Fred Luter, myself, and others, more in line with justice and equality and fairness. And the person who won only by 600 votes, he doesn't appear publicly to be in line with the majority of the Republican mindset in SBC. That's interesting, Roland, because so many blacks, as you know, Ralph West, Charlie Day, so many pulled out, and others of us threatened to pull out if they go on this strong anti-CRT rant and just in-your-face republicanism, like Al Mohler says. If you take the moral Christian position, you'll vote Republican. That's an insult to the millions of black Christians who vote Democrat because they promote justice and equality, fairness, health issues, and affordable health care, and other reasons why sometimes black people vote Democratic. I don't think God is riding the back of a donkey or of an elephant. God is God, but people have a right to, under God, make their voting decisions, and I don't think we ought to moralize or spiritualize how one votes as being in favor, in touch with God, or out of favor and in touch with God. But it's interesting. The Southern Baptist Convention, in some ways, may possibly have taken a turn by voting a candidate that nobody thought would win, that Fred Luter supported. I supported because he was the one who had a more biblical and balanced view when it comes to some of these hot-button issues.
Well, it is certainly interesting times, and I have been warning people this for a long time. What you're seeing white fear run amok. You're seeing it boils down to power, and you know, I got a kick out of Meghan McCain yesterday on The View, calling into question the spirituality of President Joe Biden because he is pro-choice and he's a Catholic, and the U.S. Conference of Bishops, Catholic bishops, passed a resolution. They want to deny communion to any Catholic who supports abortion. And my response to her was simply, hey, but the Catholic Church is also a strong believer against the death penalty. And are they going to deny communion to those who support the death penalty? It's amazing when folks love to pick and choose what biblical principles they want to support, but then they also want to talk about separation of church and state when it suits their needs.
You make a very good point. If we go to denying people communion based on theological or political positions that they hold, which one of us won't get denied communion? As you know, black people are not monolithic ourselves. A wide variety of opinions on a lot of different issues. And I think when it comes to the Lord's Supper in God's house, if you believe in the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, the substitutionary atonement of Jesus Christ, that ought to be the sole basis for the Lord's Supper, not how one check a box when it comes to politics. So I think the Catholic Church is out of lockstep on that issue. And I think it would be just really unfair if we go to asking people to check political boxes to determine whether or not we'll serve them the Lord's Supper.
Well, I'll tell you this here. I also said this to Meghan McCain. I said, the Bible talks a whole lot about the poor, and there's a whole bunch of folks, especially on the right, on the Republican side, whose policies are not in line with the poor. I said, so if y'all want to have that conversation, let's have it.
You're exactly right. A safety net was provided in Scripture. God said, keep a corner of your field for the strangers, the aliens, the foreigners, the what sometimes are called the immigrants or illegal immigrants. He said, make sure you plant enough food to take care of them. Remember the poor, is we find that in Galatians 2:10, as Paul said, as a way of demonstrating your faith. God has a heart for justice, equality, and the poor. He has showed the old man what is good, to do justice, love mercy, walk humbly with our God, And sometimes we find that lacking in the Republican Party. I think one reason George Bush, whether you like him or not, succeeded, he touted compassionate conservatism. And to some degree, I think he modeled and demonstrated compassionate conservatism. We're not used to seeing that among Republicans, and certainly not since Ronald Reagan. My mama named me Dwight after Dwight David Eisenhower. So at some point, blacks have not always had animus toward the Republican Party, but we have seen some ruthless things here under the Trump administration when it comes to race. And we are continuing to see a bent toward taking things back. Make America great again. Many of us feared that might mean make white America great again, or take it back to a time where blacks were not empowered and didn't have some opportunities and hope for a brighter day as we have today. And I think, Roland, I appreciate what you're doing and so many others to make sure that this voter suppression will not succeed, and that compassion and mercy and justice for the poor is always a part of our political landscape.
All right, Pastor Dwight McKissick, Cornerstone Baptist Church, Arlington, Texas. We surely appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Roland. God bless you. Good being with you today.
Folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
You know, Steve got all these jobs, got all this money, got all these awards. You know, he talk about God and the Lord and his wife all the time. So he was over here talking, and his wife was there, and I knew it was his wife, so I walked up behind her and gave her a kiss on the cheek. The projects in Steve came out in about 10 seconds, because he was like, I'm hearing some kissing over here. Who the hell is kissing my wife?
Well, Roland, you leaned into it and you was doing it just to aggravate me, and I heard it out my ear, and I went, okay, man, I don't know who this brother is, but Essence is about to be different. And I spun, and it was the ignorant Roland Martin messing with me. But hey, man, you know how I feel about that girl. So it was quite interesting, and I had to apologize because the CEO of Essence was standing right there, and me and Roland almost turned the festival out. It would have been quite different.
Now, speaking of turn the festival out, we also are always on our pocket square game. Always.
Now, I got to give Roland credit. We always battling each other for the different looks. Pocket squares are something we kind of specialize in. We try to make it. This is topping the game right now. This I've never seen. I will be stealing this look. As soon as I find the people from out of this country that he bought this stuff from, and I get a proper email, I'll be sending to China or wherever he bought Japan or Yugoslavia, wherever they made this, and I will be looking. That is hot. I got to give it to you. That's the best pocket square I've ever seen.
Now, last piece. Steve is a big golfer. I'm a big golfer. So when we gonna have this golfing brothers thing?
See, Roland, you're trying to talk me into something that you've been doing a lot longer than I. See, you've been playing golf since college.
I took it as my PE at Texas A&M in '87.
See, right there, I picked up golf after Tiger won the Masters. And then I bought a set of clubs and played with a custom set of clubs for 5 years without a lesson. I can't tell you the bad stuff I've ingrained into this swing. I just now started going over the top. I just cut that out. So, and I'm playing good though. I'm playing good for me. Well, what's your best score?
77.
That'll never happen here.
Well, Rodney Green is working with him. He's our good friend as well. But
77. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm taking a full-page ad out in the USA Today.
All right, folks, don't forget this Friday, the virtual festival, Essence Fest, Live Loud Virtual Festival begins this Friday. You can go to essencestudio.com, essence.com. The virtual festival will take place Friday through Sunday, and then, of course, it takes place again next weekend, July 2nd through the 4th. On Monday, we're going to have a recap of the first weekend of the virtual festival. And then, of course, on July 5th, we're going to have a recap of the second weekend.
You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible.
We basically stand where those two Democrats in particular have made it clear that they are not willing to even defend black people's right to vote in this country. So we're so far beyond actually getting any tangible material benefits from this Democratic Party, particularly because of Sinema and Manchin. But it's so far gone, not only are we not getting tangible results, material benefits, but they won't even protect the right to vote in this country because they are there on behalf of quote unquote bipartisanship. But who's getting the good end of this deal? It's not black Americans. It's not people who are trying to fight for progress. It's the Republican Party. So they are here to serve the Republican Party. I don't care what letter they have by their name.
And that's what it boils down to. And I think, decision that Manchin made, Teresa, he can say, well, I tried. But how many times have you heard me say, Joe, show me the 10. You and Sinema keep talking about bipartisanship. Show me the 10 votes. They don't exist on the Republican side.
They don't, and honestly, they won't. But I know there's so many efforts that are taking place, right now for some of these civic organizations and social justice groups, and they really are trying. But, I mean, at the end of the day, if we can't find the votes, there's no way we can find the solutions. There's no way that the support and the financial resources that were necessary to get this going early on, that I believe if we may had a bit of an early start and maybe an earlier conversation about what needed to be done and actually get this across. For me, I just can't be too optimistic about this because I think the signs are there. It's just, I think, how do we move forward or maybe find another way to move this into another package bill probably makes sense at this point.
But even here, Mustafa, even if you put it in another bill, that's not the real issue here. The issue is, will Sinema and Manchin realize that unless they vote to end the filibuster, nothing is going to happen?
Exactly. I mean, the old adage, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again and expecting a different result. And we keep doing this. We keep going through this same scenario in relationship to these very incredibly important issues. And we have politicians who won't listen to the people. 2/3 of folks in our country have said that this is something that they believe in and this is something that they support. So if our democracy is supposed to be tied to what people are asking for, then we are falling short. And it's interesting that Senator Manchin continues, as you said, to talk about the 10. So let's just call out who the 10 are supposed to be, hypothetically. It's supposed to be Romney, Collins, Cassidy, Murkowski, Portman, Warren, Young, and then, of course, Capito, who's also from West Virginia, who we know is not going to support these types of things. So if you know that out of those 10 folks, and they continually have not been supportive on these particular issues that we're talking about, then you got to do something different. And that means you have to get serious about the filibuster. And you have the opportunity to actually change the dynamics around the filibuster. You could lower it down to 53 or 54 or 50, whatever the number is that you choose to do. But you've got to make sure that it's realistic, that it is actually going to be able to be utilized in a way that you can actually get these bills passed that are so critically important to the success of our country. And that's what sometimes people fail to realize when we have these conversations. We're talking about the success of our country. If Black folks and Latinx folks and Indigenous folks and Asian and Pacific Islander folks, and yes, let me call it out, lower wealth white folks, don't have the opportunity to fully participate in the civic process, then you are marginalizing a huge amount of folks who cannot be on the journey and making sure that they have better housing and that the environment is protected and that jobs become a reality in the places and spaces that they're often don't find fertile ground. So it all goes back to this vote, which is so critically important. And that's why Sinema and that's why Manchin and others should be doing the right thing. But of course, we are focused on Sinema and Manchin because they are supposed to be Democrats. They are supposed to care about our folks. And we're not seeing that at the level that's necessary for you to actually put together a strategic plan on how you help the country to actually move from, in many instances, a survival situation to an actual thriving situation.
What we are dealing with here, we are dealing literally with a major fundamental assault on democracy. And Ben, for the people out there, and look, I get it. I know there are people who are going to say, but this is why we voted. No, this is also the problem when one person can have that much power. This is also why, let me just go ahead and say it, why white Democrats should have got off their asses and did their job in Kentucky, in Maine, and in Iowa. See, at some point, black folks are not going to keep playing Batman and Superman and Spider-Man and you know, Captain America coming in and saving these folks. And so had those Democratic candidates actually won in those states, including Cunningham in North Carolina, we're talking right now about a 54-46 majority in the Senate, and then that would lessen the need to depend upon Sinema and Manchin.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things, though, is that the Democratic Party still hasn't learned the lesson that, one, you need to trust black people. And two, you need to run some progressives. I'm thinking about Charles Booker in Kentucky. Like he did a phenomenal job in the primaries, and he didn't get the win, and neither did the Democratic Party. And so now we're stuck with this divide in the Senate that is so convenient for Democrats. Like I do want to point out, agree with you, Roland, in terms of what white Democratic voters should have done, but also to the extent that the Democratic leadership is using Manchin and Sinema as foils almost the ability to say, oh, well, we can't do it because of these two people. They allow them to play the bad guys while the Democratic leadership is still talking as though they want to get something done. But if they can't whip two senators into shape after all the years that they have on the Hill, what are they even there for?
Well, but here's the deal, though. I mean, I get your point, but Teresa, the reality is this here. A senator is essentially like a sovereign nation. You can sit here and try to put pressure on all you want to. They can decide whatever they want to do.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the choice of the voter as an individual has to, think about when it comes to election day. So the Democratic Party, I think, has to start making these critical decisions when they, decide to put how many resources to a specific candidate, or thinking about the larger candidate as a whole, because that senator will be able to hold a lot of power. They're able to wield a lot of sway. And honestly, I just don't think it's an individual decision that they have. They are also thinking about a whole other options, I think, that is happening that we're just not seeing as of yet. So there's a reason why there's a stronghold here on this bill, but I also think there is a wider scope here that I think we'll see down the line.
Well, the thing here, Mustafa, is this is what happens. We keep saying why elections matter. This thing came down to 50-50 because John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock both won in Georgia. This is why the other states matter. This is why next year the Senate races in Wisconsin, North Carolina, Ohio, Florida, Pennsylvania are going to be critically important, because that could determine the future as to whether or not Republicans either take control of the United States Senate. And also you have the Mark Kelly race in Arizona and Raphael Warnock in Georgia. So you're talking about 6 to 7 Senate races that will determine if Republicans take control of the Senate, which then means Mitch McConnell is back in power, which means no bills are going to get passed, and he's going to control Supreme Court justices. And let's be real clear, if Republicans do take over the United States Senate, I guarantee you Mitch McConnell if anything happens with a Supreme Court justice, he will let that position sit vacant for 2 years until the election. He will do it.
Exactly. And I'm so glad you called that out. First of all, I agree with everything that Ben and Teresa just said. You know, you got to seize the moment. You're right. You have no idea what's going to happen in the future, but you can plan for the future. And, you know, a lot of folks have been saying, well, they're a bit resistant into actually doing something around the filibuster because maybe, you know, when Republicans come back in, that they will then, you know, utilize that and do even more nefarious things than they have already done. You know, I'm glad you called out 2022 because the beauty of this show is that not only do we talk about what's happening in the moment, but also hopefully trying to get you to think about what's coming in the future. So we know that there are 34 seats, Senate seats, that will be up in 2022. 20 of those will be Republican seats. 14 of them will be Democratic seats. And if you actually do what's right in this moment, you don't have to worry about the outcome because the odds are that if you really get in, make the investments, that you'll be able to actually garner some additional seats. Now, as we've talked about on this show, then that means that you've got to finally start making sure that you are properly funding those on-the-ground organizations and stop chasing certain votes that you never get and actually build upon the base that you have. So you got an opportunity to do the right thing in this moment, seize this moment, get the right types of bills passed, and then you can actually grow your numbers so that you can continue this throughout the decade and actually make the change that is so critically needed and being asked for across the country.
Well, now the question is, what is Senator Chuck Schumer will do next? He made it clear he was going to put this vote to the test, to test Republicans, to see where they stand. Now we know. So, Bean, where do we go from here?
Where we go from here is we see if they can actually get enough pressure to move something around these voting rights. I mean, this is the whole ball game, Roland. We're really debating over whether or not the Democratic Party is going to be able to secure their own win. This is like politics 101 for them. If their voters can't make it to the polls and their voters can't vote without the suppression tactics by the Republican Party, then the Democratic Party can forget about having any majorities in the foreseeable future. And this is quite the shame. It's a constitutional crisis, quite frankly, because we will be ruled by the tyranny of the minority of the Republican Party, which means the tyranny of the minority of old white conservative people in this country.
Teresa, where we go now?
I'm still on the moving forward type of mindset. So I'm focused on special elections right here in Pennsylvania, and I'm also focused that actually needs to be a talking point about how many senators we need to actually move forward so we don't go into this predicament again. So I'm focused on forward, and I'm focused on other states that are willing to put the right senators in the right position so we can make the right decisions at the time we need it the most.
Mustafa, where do we go from here?
Yeah, you invest, you educate, and you mobilize on the ground inside of the states. And you make sure you're building a strong set of infrastructure there so that you can make sure that you're helping candidates to get stronger, and then you hold them accountable once they get in office. And if you're willing to do that, then you have a pathway forward. The politics is what it is on Capitol Hill. It is going to play out the way that it plays out. We can stay engaged in the process and make sure that we're getting new sets of voices who are there to make sure that we are broadening the narrative of what America can be and making sure that it's not just a narrative, but that we're actually putting real action behind the words that politicians often share with us.
Folks, back to our Roland Unfiltered video in just one moment.
You know, Steve got all these jobs, got all this money, got all these awards. You know, he talk about God and the Lord and his wife all the time. So he was over here talking, and his wife was there, and I knew it was his wife, so I walked up behind her and gave her a kiss on the cheek. The projects in Steve came out in about 10 seconds, because he was like, I'm hearing some kissing over here. Who the hell is kissing my wife?
Well, Roland, you leaned into and you was doing this just to aggravate me, and I heard it out my ear, and I went, okay, man, I don't know who this brother is, but Essence is about to be different. and I spun, and it was the ignorant Roland Martin messing with me. But hey, man, you know how I feel about that girl. So it was quite interesting, and I had to apologize because the CEO of Essence was standing right there, and me and Roland almost turned the festival out. It would have been quite different.
Now, speaking of turn the festival, we also are always on our pocket square game. Always.
Now, I got to give Roland credit. We always battling each other for the different looks. Pocket squares are something we kind of specialize in. We try to make it. This is topping the game right now. This I've never seen. I will be stealing this look. Soon as I find the people from out of this country that he bought this stuff from, and I get a proper email, I'll be sending to China or wherever he bought Japan or Yugoslavia, wherever they made this, and I will be looking. That is hot. I got to give it to you. That's the best pocket square I've ever seen.
Now, last piece. Steve is a big golfer. I'm a big golfer. So when we gonna have this golfing brothers thing?
See, Roland, you're trying to talk me into something that you've been doing a lot longer than I. See, you've been playing golf since college.
I took it as my PE at Texas A&M in '87.
See, right there, I picked up golf after Tiger won the Masters. And then I bought a set of clubs and played with a custom set of clubs for 5 years without a lesson. I can't tell you the bad stuff I've ingrained into this swing. I just now started going over the top. I just cut that out. Okay. So, and I'm playing good though. I'm playing good for me. Well, what's your best score?
77.
That'll never happen here.
Well, Rodney Green is working with him. He's our good friend as well. But
77. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm taking a full-page ad out in the USA Today.
All right, folks, don't forget this Friday, the virtual festival, Essence Fest Live Loud Virtual Festival begins this Friday. You can go to essencestudio.com, essence.com. The virtual festival will take place Friday through Sunday, and then, of course, it takes place again next weekend, July 2nd through the 4th. On Monday, we're going to have a recap of the first weekend of the virtual festival. And then, of course, on July 5th, we're going to have a recap of the second weekend.
You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible.
Here in California, in San Bernardino, authorities investigating video footage of a deputy kicking a man in the head during an arrest. Willie Jones failed to stop for a traffic violation, prompting a police chase. According to authorities, Jones, who was riding his motorcycle, abandoned his bike and continued on foot. When Jones tried to hide behind cars in a parking lot, an officer eventually finds him and arrests him. Watch this. Now you're going to see in a moment here, folks, exactly what took place. So, look at those actions. Now, the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department addressed the use of force incident in this video released on their Facebook page.
My name is Shannon Dykes, and I'm the Undersheriff for Sheriff John McMahon. I want to ensure the citizens of San Bernardino County, the sheriff and I are aware of the alarming video depicting a deputy kicking a suspect. This video came to our attention after a Victorville watch commander was contacted by the security company that monitors the parking lot where this incident occurred. The watch commander reviewed the video and immediately determined the deputy's actions were disturbing. The watch commander notified the commander of the station. I want to ensure our community that it is our expectation that deputies respond to any incident professionally and in a manner that's consistent with their training. We know the community's trust is the platform which enables us to do our jobs. The deputy involved in this incident was immediately taken off duty and placed on administrative leave. A criminal investigation is being conducted. This investigation will be submitted to the district attorney. Subsequently, an administrative investigation will also be initiated to allow for the appropriate employment actions to be taken. It's unfortunate when incidents like these occur because it causes turmoil within our communities and equally amongst our deputies who pride themselves on providing professional service. We take these matters seriously and want to assure you that a thorough investigation will be conducted.
I guess what's so disturbing about this, Teresa, is that it was a surveillance camera that caught it, and it was called in. That camera wasn't there, and unless that cop was wearing a body camera. Hey, it was his word against the cop's word.
And we all know who the department would have believed, and the attorney would have had a stronghold issue on making sure, that this man actually got the medical attention he well deserves. But I mean, more importantly, what are the teachings and what are the standards? Because I'm sure if we profiled this deputy officer, we would have probably seen that he is a veteran in his capacity as a deputy officer and knows what the laws are. But I mean, just the minimum of treating someone like a human being it's not like even a requirement. It's not even something that needs to be taught. It's just something that should be learned as you grow. So it's unfortunate, it's another disgrace. But again, why we need to have, these officers held accountable as they are getting paid, a non-minimum wage salary, but a high-paying salary to protect us and not beat us.
But that's why, Ben, you look, this is power dynamics. This is, how dare you run? I'm tired as hell. I'm going to kick you in your face. To me, this is where, dude, you off the force. We still going to investigate, but you off. The DA can sit here and they can try all they can decide whether they're going to sit here and file charges against you, but you are no longer a cop.
We're negotiating basic humanity at this point. Basic humanity 101. And I guess this has been a negotiation. This is what it is to be black in this country. So this is nothing new. However, we are now privy to video surveillance footage of it. And the fact that you're absolutely right, Roland, what you pointed out, had that security company not reported this, he would have got away with this. In fact, the young man who was assaulted in this probably would have gotten charged with something because, as we always know, anytime there's an encounter with the police, we automatically are resisting arrest. It doesn't matter if we're laying on the ground in a submissive position, is still resisting arrest, such that this officer decided to treat this man less than a dog, because had this been a dog, this guy would have been off the force already.
And the thing for me, Mustafa, I don't care if the dude ran away. You don't kick somebody in the head.
Right. If you can cause brain damage, you could kill somebody if you hit them in the right location, especially, when you're coming down with all that force. That's why I continue to say, and some folks push back on it, you got to continue to do these psychological evaluations, one before you hire folks and throughout the career. I understand that there are immense stressors that law enforcement go under. I have black law enforcement executives in my family, all the way down to folks who were patrolmen. So I get what goes on the street sometimes, but you also have a responsibility. You decided that you wanted to be in law enforcement. So that means that you have to have restraint, even in stressful situations. And I'm not saying this is a stressful situation. I've seen situations that are far more stressful where, people have done things and it still doesn't make it right. You got to change these dynamics and you got to get rid of folks, because as the sheriff or deputy sheriff was sharing there, you break trust. And when you break trust with a community, takes a huge amount of time and effort to rebuild that trust. And when folks see these types of actions, it reinforces that negative vision that far too many people have of the police, especially far too many people of color, because it is the reality that people have to deal with. So, one, these folks got to go, like Ben said, and make sure that they're never, ever a law enforcement person again. And then the second part of the equation is hopefully that they're actually prosecuted. Because if I go out and kick somebody in the head, or if you go out and kick somebody in the head, then you're going to be prosecuted. So you don't get a pass for being a law enforcement person and utilizing that type of behavior in a situation that never called for it.
Mm. Oh, no doubt. That's one of us. We're getting charged with assault.
Folks, back to that Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
You know, Steve got all these jobs, got all this money, got all these awards. You know, he talk about God and the Lord and his wife all the time. So he was over here talking, and his wife was there, and I knew it was his wife, so I walked up behind her and gave her a kiss on the cheek. The projects in Steve came out in about 10 seconds, because he was like, I'm hearing some kissing over here. Who the hell is kissing my wife?
Well, Roland, you leaned into it and you was doing it just to aggravate me, and I heard it out my ear, and I went, okay, man, I don't know who this brother is, but Essence is about to be different. And I spun, and it was the ignorant Roland Martin messing with me. But hey, man, you know how I feel about that girl. So it was quite interesting, and I had to apologize because the CEO of Essence was standing right there, and me and Roland almost turned the festival out. It would have been quite different.
Now, speaking of turn the festival, we also are always on our pocket square game. Always.
Now, I got to give Roland credit. We always battling each other for the different looks. Pocket squares are something we kind of specialize in. We try to make it. This is topping the game right now. This I've never seen. I will be stealing this look. Soon as I find the people from out of this country that he bought this stuff from, and I get a proper email, I'll be sending to China or wherever he bought Japan or Yugoslavia, wherever they made this, and I will be looking. That is hot. I got to give it to you. That's the best pocket square I've ever seen.
Now, last piece. Steve is a big golfer. I'm a big golfer. So when we gonna have this golfing brothers thing?
See, Roland, you're trying to talk me into something that you've been doing a lot longer than I. See, you've been playing golf since college.
I took it as my PE at Texas A&M in '87.
See, right there, I picked up golf after Tiger won the Masters. And then I bought a set of clubs and played with a custom set of clubs for 5 years without a lesson. I can't tell you the bad stuff I've ingrained into this swing. I just now started going over the top. I just cut that out. Okay. So, and I'm playing good though. I'm playing good for me. Well, what's your best score?
77.
That'll never happen here.
Well, Rodney Green is working with him. He's our good friend as well. But
77. I would tell you right now, I'm taking a full-page ad out in the USA Today.
All right, folks, don't forget this Friday, the virtual festival, Essence Fest Live Loud Virtual Festival begins this Friday. You can go to essencestudio.com, essence.com. The virtual festival will take place Friday through Sunday, and then, of course, it takes place again next weekend, July 2nd through the 4th. On Monday, we're going to have a recap of the first weekend of the virtual festival. And then, of course, on July 5th, we're going to have a recap of the second weekend.